Hi, friends. Hello, the world. Welcome back to this episode of Tools for Transitioning Humanitarians. And today I'm talking about if you are creating your impact on purpose, how are you doing it? How could you do it? And where exactly could you do it? That's the topic that I want to talk about. And the reason why I want to do this is because I feel like a lot of us humanitarians, we tend to um, keep searching for how all the evidence, right, of how we're not creating the impact that we want to. We should have created this impact and we're not. And therefore, we feel like in so much maybe shame or guilt or dissatisfaction. And then we just keep feeling this like we want to do more, we want to do different things, and we can't. And therefore, we don't really value all the things that we are doing, or we don't make a decision to go somewhere else to do it. And we just stay in this cycle, vicious cycle. And that's why I really wanted to take time today to talk about how we can actually create the impact we want to, how we are creating impact without maybe even noticing or knowing it. Excuse me, because we're so busy um, searching for impact somewhere else, right? So that's why I want to talk about what it is, the impact that we're talking about, where we can do that specifically, and how we can do that, and also how not to do that. This is the topic that I want to talk about. And if you want coaching around how you can determine for yourself what the impact you are creating around you, what kind of impact that is, and do you like it or not, and what you want to do about it, then absolutely come coach with me. I have limited spots left, and I would love you to be one of my clients this year. So let's dive into the topic of impact. So let's start with what is actually the impact. And of course, you are welcome to determine in the way that feels good and usable to you. This is how I'm determining it, which is impact is creating conditions for others or for ourselves to feel in a particular way. That is the impact. And it can be about ourselves, it can be about others, or it can be our interaction with others as well, right? So the other way that I'm making it more visual or more specific is basically your behavior, whichever the way you are behaving currently with yourself, with others, in your personal or work relationships. This behavior is creating an outcome, whether it's a positive or negative, to someone else or to yourself, right? And then this behavior is coming from how you feel and how you think about that particular situation or about that particular person. And that's how impact is created. In other words, you guys, we're already creating impact, whether we know it or not, whether we like it or not. We are creating impact everywhere we go, every interaction we're having, and the same way every interaction we are having with ourselves as well. Now, why we need to talk about impact? I'm sorry that you can't see it, but that's the why that's written there. So why do we need to talk about impact in our workplace or in our own lives? Is because we human beings want to be useful, right? We want to be doing good things in the world. We want to grow. We want to make things sustainable. That was definitely one of my main goals, is that I really wanted to do humanitarian work that had impact not only in a short term but also in a long term, right? And that's why we want to do things that make sense, that are useful, that are so like obvious or so visible that we don't even need to write lots of reports about explaining why and how we created it, but rather this is it, this is the impact that we have created, right? So that's what we really want as human beings, and that's for everyone, I'm assuming, on Earth. And that's why when we don't see that impact, what we usually do then is we start not believing things that we're doing. We start losing our passion of what we're doing and why we're doing it, because we're saying it doesn't make sense, right? And that's absolutely normal, because human beings, especially our brains, are designed in a way that saves energy, that does things only it makes sense, does things that are useful, and everything else we don't want to do it. And therefore, we end up wondering why we are feeling burnout or why we are feeling depressed, because we don't really see the impact that we are creating, that we want to create. And therefore, we lose interest and we stop growing, we stop getting into the stagnation period, or maybe even we feel like we're trapped. And then that's where our lives don't really sound fun the way that it used to when we started. Now, the question always is, where do we create this impact? And I think a lot of the times we don't really realize that the impact should start with ourselves first. In other words, how are we impacting our own lives? How are we impacting our own relationships with other people? And then going to how are we doing that with other people, right? So maybe it's at workplace. How are we creating the impact, consciously knowing it or intentionally doing it, or not really intentional, but this is coming out of it, right? And how are we doing that impact then with the people that we are serving, those people that are refugees, migrants, people who are seeking justice, people who are wanting equality, equity, people who are wanting to fight for justice or fight against discrimination, all of those things, right? So the people that we are serving, how are we doing that impact with those people? And most importantly, is all of our previous impacts of how we're impacting ourselves, how we're impacting other relationships, how all of those are impacting the way we are serving other people, right? That's really, I think, the part that we focus on, and we should, but also we should understand that if we keep impacting ourselves negatively, if we keep impacting other people at work negatively, especially in the managerial role, in the leadership role, and then they have the turmoil of emotions and stress, and they're not really able to uh, deliver the aid in the way that we want to, or not to all the people that we want to, or not really having time to do those things because we're so busy with other parts of fixing things, then obviously all of this will impact how we are serving those people that we really truly want to serve. That's why the importance of why we need to be looking at how are we impacting our surroundings, starting from within ourselves, can be a very helpful way to audit ourselves as well, and then see, okay, do I really want to be doing this way or not? And if not, how do I want to do differently? Now, let us go to how to do the impact and how are you currently doing it, and understanding that, right? So let's get a very simple example when it comes to impacting ourselves. And I think a lot of the times we don't really think about how we are impacting ourselves, because we just keep reacting to things, we just keep going on with our daily lives, and then we don't really maybe take time to reflect, or maybe sometimes we take too much time to reflect, that we have a lot of time to beat ourselves up, right? So the way that we impact ourselves and our own lives is basically this way, right? So if we behave towards ourselves in this way, meaning let's say that if we smoke or if we drink or if we keep sitting in the social media the whole time, and then feeling like despair, compare and despair situation, or and then we keep beating ourselves for how we're not that person, or how we didn't do these things and how we could have done better, and then undermining ourselves for how we're not good at the XYZ things, and then just hiding in all of our shame and fear and all of these things. This is how we impact ourselves, right? And then because we distrust our abilities and who we are and what we're capable of, then therefore we impact ourselves so much that we don't really get to know who we are and what we are capable of and what we can achieve and what kind of impact we can create, because it becomes so much about ourselves and not really about the things that we want to do, the experience we want to have, how we want to see our own capacity and explore that. All of this becomes uh, not accessible, and therefore the impact that we create is revolve around our own stories of how we can do XYZ things, right? Now, if imagine we did the opposite of these, meaning that we had a healthy lifestyle, we didn't spend time beating ourselves up, or even if we did, then we notice ourselves that we don't really want to do that because there is no use of it. And we're not going to blame ourselves or keep undermining as to how we can do XYZ, and instead start trusting ourselves and taking actions to quit smoking. That's just an example, right? But there might be many other things. Quit the social media after a certain hour and then start doing and working on the things that we want to, that bring the positive outcome that we like and want. Then obviously we're impacting ourselves in the positive way, right? So the same goes for your impact with others, which I think many of the times we don't really think about it. And that's why a lot of work cultures that I have been seeing lately is filled with blame, filled with communication issues, they say. And when we dig deep into what is the communication issue, then people don't trust each other, they don't really communicate well, they try to attack each other or feel defensive, and then the communication breaks down, right? So that's, if you are one of these people, then notice that you are also contributing to that work environment, right? Because we can't really withdraw our responsibility by saying, well, if the other person was XYZ, then I would be okay with it. Because no matter whether we wish the other person was not there or not, we need to either find a solution to solve it, talk to that person or talk to other people, whatever it is, or understand how we might be contributing to that, how we can stop the effect of it within ourselves, right? So there are a lot of things we can do, but because we're not really realizing as to how this is all impacting us, how managers or leaders maybe, or people in the leading role or in the influential role, right? They may not be really thinking about how their behaviors are affecting others or creating conditions for others to feel in a particular way. Therefore, we're not really aware of what the impact we're creating. So, for instance, if you were to be one of those people, and if you behave in the way that you judge someone, you distrust them, you have emotional outbursts of blaming them or being angry at them, especially in front of other people, or, excuse me, accusing of that person of something, undermining their abilities, or complaining about them to other people, or maybe making rumors about them, or keep micromanaging them, then obviously the impact of your behavior on other people, it's not like rocket science to find out, right? The impact that you will be creating that in that environment is, especially if you're in the leading role or especially if you're in the supervisory role, then the impact that you create is basically they don't want to be working with you unless they have to. And because at work you feel like you have to, then they will be doing everything out of obligation. And when they do things out of obligation, they're not going to do things out of full and heart and soul. They are likely to do it out of minimal way of not making mistake. They are likely to experience a lot of stress, a lot of pressure. They know that you don't judge them anyway. They know you don't trust them, and therefore they don't trust you either, but they just feel like they have to tolerate you since you are in the leading role or in the supervisory role, right? But without really being able to say the things because they don't feel safe to be saying things of, you actually are judging me, you're not trusting me, you're not really uh supporting me in my role of what I can do and cannot do, and therefore I feel conscious of everything I do, and I'm not really able to do things under stress well. So therefore, I'm trying my best. At the end of the day, I go home and I just hate you, right? That could be one of the ways that they probably would want to say, but because they don't feel safe to say any of these things and they're afraid of you probably in many of the hierarchies, therefore your impact is very negative, right? I have been in this situation, unfortunately. I have also been in this situation where on the receiving end. Therefore, all of this talking from the experience and experience of several clients that I coach. Now, this is how we create negative impact, right? Now, let's look at how we wish everyone that we encounter created positive impact. And probably that's not possible. Probably that's like a wishful thinking or the perfectionist thinking. But at least being aware of how our behaviors create the impact that we like or don't like is so key, right? So if we know that these are the behaviors that are likely to create positive outcome, then wouldn't we want to be doing that, right? That's a very logical way of wanting things to be done. So if we behave in the way that we don't judge other people, instead we try to understand why they're doing the way they're doing it, why they're not able to do the way that we agreed they would do, and understand and listen to what's going on, then maybe we can do something about it together, right? The other thing is always showing our supportiveness in whatever is happening. I have also been blessed and fortunate with bosses like that who have always been supportive of me no matter how much I screwed up. And I was the one feeling so much shame for all of those things, right? Even if they didn't say anything, I was already on the ground feeling so much shame of how I have messed things up. So therefore, I didn't even need anyone else's comment on it. I knew it myself, right? So therefore, having them being supportive and saying that no worries because we all make mistakes and we're human beings was such a uplifting way for me to continue fixing the problems that I have created. Now, the same way is trusting, right? Trusting is such a big one, especially at workplace, is you know when someone trusts you or not, right? You know it even if they didn't tell you, even if they didn't articulate in any way, but how they behaved after having done the task or how they behaved during the process of delegating the task. And let's say me, the person who's implementing, executing that task, if my manager keeps coming and afraid of if I will mess up, I will know that that's a distrusting behavior. But if my manager says that I trust you will do a good job and here is how we're going to do it, and we discuss and then I go and do it, then I also know that I am being trusted, right? So therefore, the impact of my manager on me at the time is very clear, right? What's amazing about this is also that when we are doing this trust with so many people, they are reciprocating that trust with us as well, because we are human beings. We tend to mirror each other a lot. If we see the other person is distrusting us, we're likely to distrust them as well because of a subconscious way of reacting to things and mirroring things, right? So the more we trust other people, well, ourselves first and other people more, the more we're likely to get the reciprocity of that in creating the positive impact of them figuring things out on their own, growing. And if there is any problem coming to us and us discussing, is usually a healthy way of working. Now, being honest, I would also say being vulnerable to an extent, depending on how you see the vulnerability, and also feeling safe and connecting are amazing ways that we create impact in the world as well. I'm so amazed that oftentimes I meet humanitarians that I have never met online, right? Online, I meet a lot of people. And then when I meet, I like, because I come to this call with so much connecting and safe and trusting way, that I just feel like we have amazing time together. Even if we didn't know each other forever or never, we start connecting in ways that are just so amazing, right? So that's why this is another way that we know that the more we behave this way, the more impact we create in other people, meaning we create conditions for other people to be able to come honestly and feeling safe to say things the way they think are happening. They may even say things that we're not doing well. They may say things that we should be watching out because we hurt someone in that way, whatever it is. They feel safe to come to us and tell us, right? So therefore, you can see that the way that we positively impact our relationship with other people, our relationship in the workplace, start always with ourselves individually as well. Now let's think about people we serve and how all of the previous impact come here, right? So one of the ways that we may need to do is we need to trace back to how we are creating currently the impact, in what way, and is that impact the way we like or not? And if we don't like that impact, why exactly, and what can we do about it? Because oftentimes I feel like we get very abstract when it comes to creating impact. And because we get so abstract, we then keep like not seeing the tangible outcomes, we feel. And because we don't see the tangible outcomes, we feel like we're not really doing our job well. We could have done more. And then our brain, that's a lot of the time negative by default, start to find all the reasons why we're not doing the things we should be. And that might have a merit to look at them as well, but at the same time, understanding that how are we making the impact, and most importantly, how is the impact of me impacting myself, meaning looking at my own emotions, looking at my own behaviors, right? At the same time with other colleagues, how we are interacting and doing things together, how that is impacting the way we are serving other people. And if there's anything we can do, let's start doing it. So the way that I have given the example of how we might be impacting with our work, let's say you are a program officer or project manager, whichever the way that your function is, your work is, then think about what are the ways you are impacting, creating impact currently with your work, with your own behaviors in relationships. How are you doing that, right? So when it comes to serving the people that you are serving, one of the ways might be that you keep donors happy about informing them all of all the things that are going on, or keep auditors happy, because otherwise we wouldn't have the money to be spending, or we wouldn't have new funding coming to be spending on the people that we want to, right? Maybe we are impacting by how budgets are allocated in the way that we serve the most vulnerable first, or the most who are in urgent need, whatever the criteria is. So we are impacting those decisions, right? We are impacting those decisions by um, arguing for or against in meetings, by writing those reports afterwards, so that the auditors don't have problem with it. Or so all of these ways are that you are impacting the way that the aid is delivered to the people that you're wanting, or how the money is spent, by monitoring whether we are wasting the money or not, and whether there is the sustainability of what we're doing or not. All of this you are impacting by doing this job. Now, for some of you, this is where it may get like, okay, I should have been doing more, or I this is not enough, or this is like anyone could do it. I'm not really doing the impact that I want to. in this case, get specific. Get specific as to what impact you believe you should be doing and you're not doing, and why, right? Is it because of systemic constraints that you have that you could and would do it if it wasn't for that systemic constraints? For instance, when I was a humanitarian worker, I used to advocate so much for water provision for a particular settlement in one part of Ukraine. And I was told by my managers, in without anything negative intended, right? They told that this is not our mandate. That's not our mandate. There are other people better equipped to do it, and they can do it. And my argument was that they're not doing it. But then their argument was that then we need to do something to advocate with them so they do their job in the allocation of the work that we have discussed as part of uh, our cluster coordination with other people, right? So you can see that I wanted to do that impact of giving the village the most needed resource, which was water, instead of like carrying water in bottles to them every week or twice a week, and then people feeling like they had lots of plastics around and they needed to carry all the water to their homes. So it was a very difficult situation, especially where there were a lot of older people who had no one around and someone needed to assist them individually. It was just a lot of problems. Instead, we could solve it systemically or sustainably. But in that moment, it wasn't possible because of the war. So therefore, you can see that I wanted to do the impact and I saw how it could be done. And we had the resources and we also needed to coordinate with others. And therefore, systemic ways that constrained me doing the things that I thought was the most important, as well as the people who were suffering from the consequences of the war, they thought it was important as well, right? So you can see that there are also certain impacts we want to do, but we just have constraints that don't allow us to do. Then we need to make a decision as to what to do with that situation. But if you feel like there are impacts that you would like to do and you could do, then why are you not doing it? Or if you feel like you can't really do that in the environment, then the question is, can you do it somewhere else? Now, let's go to my examples as a manager as to how I have created the impact. Some of the times negative, you all, I must say, and I must admit, but there were also positive ones, right? So the way that I have impacted um, um, other people in my situation in the beginning as a manager, I think I was so much in the overwhelm and in the stress situation. I was dealing with my own burnout and depression, and therefore I was really not able to impact my like relationship with colleagues in the positive ways that I really wanted. There were some of the clashes, there were conflicts. I was not ready to deal with questioning of my decisions by some of the staff members or team members, right? So therefore, you can see that, and that in those cases, I have impacted some of them negatively, right? But if I were able to manage my emotions, not beat myself up, knowing how to deal with those stressful situations and pressure situations, knowing that I don't need to prove everything to everyone and I can actually take a break and rest at the same time, being the model of how I want my team members to feel. When I started feeling that myself, then it translated to other people that I was interacting with, right? So that's how I was impacting then positively, because I was able to impact myself, my life, and then in that moment, in that period, positively. In the same way, then I was contributing to the overall office environment where we didn't really spend any time on intrigues or rumors or complaining or blaming. but we tried to do more of, okay, how can we solve it? What can we do? And that was maybe didn't work all of the times, but worked a lot of the times, right? So that's the goal. And then as a result, the way that we have then served people that we wanted in the way that was not requiring a lot of energy, a lot of effort, it felt more like it was more streamlined. It was a mature, planned way of executing aid delivery, right? And it was in so many different regions. So therefore, you can see how it all impacts one another, right? And now let's think about the way that I impact my life and others as a life coach, right? So the way that I do it is obviously I start with myself, right? I start impacting myself in the positive way, in the way that I want to intentionally. I have learned how to overcome burnout, how to overcome depression, how to take care of myself before even getting to those situations. So I have learned how to do that. Therefore, I have impacted myself in that way. And then I have impacted my family in the way that my mom's generation, my sister generation, unfortunately, have all been in the violent, gender-based violence context a lot of their lives. And I have been able to impact my own life by cutting that gender-based violence in my own life, right? I have never experienced that type of violence, thankfully, because I have also decided not to allow that to happen. I have created my life in the way that I wanted to, with the people I want to, and therefore this violence has never been part of my life. So you can see that I have impacted myself and my family to show to my family what other ways that marriage can work, what other ways that relationships can work, what other ways that growth and living life the way you want to can work. And I have impacted them by being an example in my own life, right? And therefore, my nieces now, they are now building relationships where they no longer want to tolerate this type of verbal or physical abuse or violence, right? And they're now going for relationships where they want to have mutual respect, love, and based on conversations and solving problems instead of beating each other up. So you can see that I have impacted myself so much, and with my life, I have impacted their vision of how life can be in any other way. The same goes for my peers, right? So when I talk to other peers who have graduated school with me, who have graduated university with me, they have also seen what's possible, what type of travel in life is possible, what type of education is possible, how much you can change your life by educating yourself and your children. And now they are impacting their children by saying that we have a lot of examples of people who are doing it, so you can do it too, right? So you can see that how that impacts as well. And then also my clients, right? So my clients come to me wanting promotions, wanting to not let their work dominate their life so much so they can go and create families, or they can go and spend time with their loved ones, and they want to be the people who no longer neglects their family members, right? So in that sense, I have been able to help them create that life that they really wanted, and now they will be examples for their relationships, for their impact with others, and the chain goes that way, right? The same goes with my potential clients who come to me and who we discuss things, and then I show them what are the possibilities of what they can achieve with their abilities, with their experience, with their expertise. And then they start allowing themselves to believe new possibilities, and they start then affecting their circle and the wider audience. You can see that we create impact every day with every interaction with ourselves and others all of the times. And because we may not be really aware of all of this, then we feel like we're not really creating the impact that we want to. So when you have that feeling of what are the impacts you are not creating, get specific as to what it is and how can you do that. And at the same time, look at all the impact you're currently creating, have created in the past, and how you can do more of that. And one other question that I like asking, I think this is my last, no, this is not my last, is what impact I wouldn't have created if I didn't do the humanitarian work, if I didn't do the life coaching work, right? What are the impacts I wouldn't have created? This is another way of, like, when we negate things, we start seeing things even more because our brains are so apt to noticing things, right? So if I wasn't uh, a humanitarian, if I wasn't a life coach, then probably I would have followed my father's expectation of getting married and following the society's rules and being dependent on the husband and possibly experiencing violence because that was very common at the time in the circles where I was going around, right? So that probably would be the impact on my life, and also not knowing how to be helpful to other people, and maybe even continuing in violence, as I said. And I think I wouldn't be able to also create the impact that I'm creating now. I wouldn't have any of those impacts that I have just mentioned now, right? So therefore you can see that how much impact I have already created, and I'm sure you can find your ways of how much impact you have created in your own life. And think about also what impact could have been avoided if you didn't behave in this way. A lot of the times, I think we may not be aware of how we are creating the impact of stress, pressure, intrigues in others, maybe by behaving in particular ways. We might be also creating micromanaging environments by behaving in particular ways, right? And all of this could have been avoided if we didn't do certain behaviors, if we didn't act in certain ways. We also could have avoided confusion a lot of the times, or distrust, disbelief, if we behaved in particular ways. So, thus, all of this to show you that I really want you to be so aware of what are the impacts you are currently creating, you have been creating, whether you like those impacts that you have created, and if not, what can you do about it? Is it something that you can do about it, right? That's very key and important. Or if it's not, then what's the next step? So as long as we're not aware of what impact we are creating, we will likely to feel useless. We will likely to feel we're not really making sense. We're not really doing the things that we want to. And therefore frustration keep coming up a lot from those uh, um, ways of vaguely keep thinking about it. But instead, if we get very like curious and specific about where and how I'm impacting my own life, how am I impacting my relationships with other people, be it at home, be it at work, and how am I impacting the people that I'm serving, and do I like those? And if not, what am I going to do about it? Can give you so much data or information about what to do next. You will know for sure what to do next. And absolutely come coach with me. I would love to help you get so clear as to your impact and what impact you would like to create intentionally in the world, in your life. And let's work on that together. Thank you so much for this time together. It was my honor. And I will be talking to you very soon.